The creepy reel brings you Towards the Window, Part 3, an original story. The empty road ahead, shaded by the tall trees that seem to dance on the asphalt as the sunlight hits it from just the right angle, welcomed me with open arms. I leaned on the hood of my car, facing miles of nothingness as the cool wind tickled my face. Mixed with the warmth from the sun, the combination was gratifying. It was nice being out of the city. I've been a prisoner to its grip for so long, I forgot how good it felt to leave. There was a certain newness in the air, a fresh feeling, as if it were encouraging me to wipe my slate clean. I haven't seen a rest stop for miles, and I needed to take a leak bad before I stumbled upon the secluded cutoff from the highway. It had a nice view, overlooking miles of foliage. The tops of businesses and apartment buildings peeked out slightly above the horizon. Behind me laid the highway and a new beginning. As I stared off into the distance, my head began pounding. It hurt like hell. The front of my skull felt like it was splitting in two. This isn't the first occurrence either. Every single day since I started packing my life up to leave, the pain grows more intense. I didn't want to play doctor. A few painkillers and a couple of shots of my favorite bourbon was all I needed to numb and forget. I stripped the plastic off a fresh pack of smokes and sniffed the carton, savoring the smell of satisfaction before pulling my first enjoyment out and lighting it as soon as the wind simmered down. A deep inhale filled my lungs with a cocktail of smoke and cool O2 before I exhaled and pondered my journey. The smoke slowly drifted in front of my eyes and formed a bright glow of pulsating shapes in the air before vanishing. I laughed at the sight of this. It looked like something out of a cartoon. Weird. Must be tiny air pockets or something causing the smoke to take on its new form. I walked to the back of my car and popped the trunk. My future laid out in front of me. I stared at the money. $10,000 of cold, hard cash was staring back at me. A memento of a life I'd soon forget. To be honest, I haven't given much thought to what occurred last week. Aside from the nightmarish dreams I've been having, I felt fine. However, they were terrifyingly vivid. Some of them even felt like sleep paralysis episodes, but they were so real I couldn't distinguish between dream and reality. I always saw figures that moved oddly, as if glitching through time and space. They spoke in muffled voices as if they were underwater. I could never move my arms or legs, and I always looked up at them as they probed, prodded, and stuck copious amounts of needles in me. In some dreams I forfeited my will to fight, and I just laid there, accepting their torture. In other dreams I was furious, screaming loudly as the density of the room muffled my voice, kicking and pulling at the restraints until they ground my skin down to the bone. And then there were dreams when I saw him, his head wrapped in that same skin-tight white mask. He looked the same as the first day I encountered him. He stood at the foot of the table in every dream, sometimes motionless, his tall frame seemingly too long for his attire, his exposed wrists revealing what appears to be just bone wrapped in skin, his neck abnormally long and covered in veins and streaks of blood. I could almost see the shape of every connecting muscle expand as he breathed raggedly. He stared directly into my eyes and never blinked. Blood oozed from beneath the mask, forming tiny droplets in the fabric before dripping down his face. The scariest dreams were the ones of his contortionist dance. He twisted and swirled, bending every which way. I could hear the muffled popping of bone and cartilage with every motion he made, the sounds reminiscent of cracking necks and spines. He mimicked the same motions as he did during our initial encounter, all without breaking his bloodshot gaze from my eyes. He wouldn't blink or look away. Even when he faced another direction during his terrifying routine, he would turn his head to make eye contact with me. The longer he danced, the more blood excreted from his mask. I can't think about this anymore. I don't have a history of mental instability or a connection to the spirit world. So maybe these events were caused by my capture. Wait, what am I saying? I was just under extreme stress, right? Yeah, that's it. Stress. I mean, I was mentally tortured by whoever those people were and fled for my life. That's all that happened. I woke up, I got the money. Maybe because I saw them, they decided to reward me? Whatever. The body does crazy things under duress. Frankly, I don't care. I'm not dead, nor am I a schizophrenic psycho as mentioned in the paper. So I don't want to dwell on the past. I just need to keep moving ahead, away from here. Slamming the trunk closed, I hopped back in the driver's seat, turned the key and sped off towards the dancing asphalt, windows down as a cool air channeled through the car. I was so far away from civilization that all the radio stations turned to static. I was so disconnected from the world now, and there was something liberating about that. The last sign I saw read that the next city was 300 miles away. Seemed like a far enough place to finally call home. I was the only one on the road for the first half of the journey. From what I can see in the rear view, there were 3 vehicles trailing close behind me. I stuck my arm outside and motioned for them to pass. The engine of a minivan roared past me as I waved them on. 2 kids in the back seat gestured peace signs at me as they zoomed by, causing a sudden rush of dust to fill my car. An old town car then followed, responding to the movements of my arm. An elderly woman in the passenger seat turned to smile at me as they sped ahead. I was in no hurry to get to my destination. I didn't even know where I was going, so I'd rather not hold traffic up because I sure as hell wasn't going to speed. I tried to wipe the dust from my eye before waving the 3rd vehicle on. A few moments later, I noticed the same vehicle in my rear view. Maybe they hadn't noticed my gesture. I slowed down even further and firmly waved, signaling for them to pass. Nothing. They always maintain a car's length behind me, matching my speed as I slowed down even further. I spotted 2 faces in the rearview mirror. I couldn't make out much because the windshield must have been tinted and there was so much dust trailing behind me. But every few seconds the sun would beam into the car just right, revealing glimpses of their faces. The driver had a very thick mustache that was eerily familiar. It was a stark contrast to the man's complexion. The passenger was clean-shaven and donned a fedora. There are not many people from here who still wore fedoras. There was something vaguely familiar about them. But if they knew me and my car, I'm sure they would have signaled me to pull over instead of following me at a distance. I wasn't scared. These roads can get lonely, and sometimes the company of another car is what gets you through the long drives. I sped up and glanced at them as they mirrored my speed, still maintaining a car's length. Another sign. Only 250 miles to go. I'm gonna need to refuel soon. I'm sure the car behind me will too. Maybe we can chat once we stop and decide to take turns trailing each other to avoid boredom. The air grew colder as night fell. A sudden chill filling the car prompted me to wind all my windows up, my headlights reflecting off something up ahead. Food, gas, and lodging, 50 miles. I sighed in relief as I can finally put an end to this exhausting day. I reached out to turn the radio on before I felt something outside my driver window. I was startled, accidentally hitting the power knob to reveal static through the speakers at an uncomfortable volume. I peered in the direction of my headlights, to the left and right of me and in the rear view, back at the car behind me. What the hell? It felt like I was being watched or stared at, and the moment I felt the pressure of the stare, it was gone. About 20 miles to go. I need to get some rest. The bright neon sign flickered "Journeys In" as I pulled off the main road. I expected the car behind me to exit as well, but they kept driving. I looked out my window to watch them cruise by. The black car blending in with the darkness of the night. The only identifiers of its presence were the taillights floating down the road. In the rear window, something faded into view, as if it were transparent and now suddenly solid. I couldn't make it out from this distance, but they were 2 yellow circles. I want to say they looked like eyes, but I've been talking crazy all day and I really need to stop fueling that fire. The sudden pressure and fear I felt caused me to clench my jaw and white-knuckle the steering wheel. Chills filled me to the bone and I immediately wanted to run for my life. When there was enough distance between me and the car, the yellow orbs faded out in the same manner they faded in. I exhaled loudly, gasping and panting for air. I was holding my breath without realizing. My palms were sweaty and my muscles relaxed from the tension that engulfed me. Okay, I'm tired. I'm just tired. The door to room 7 opened with a loud creak, probably due to unbothered hinges for quite some time. It was cheap, small, but more importantly, it was warm. I flicked the light switch on, revealing a very cozy setting. There was minimal furniture, a TV and a kitchenette set up for coffee, heating up food, and an assortment of random condiments. Equipped was a tiny bathroom, and next to that was a closet, which I closed immediately. Open closets gave me the creeps. The blinds were drawn open to one side, revealing the cold darkness of the night, the only illumination being the neon sign advertising the motel in the middle of nowhere. I left them open and turned the lights off, creating a relaxing ambiance by the glow of the sign. For the price, it wasn't as bad as I thought. I dropped the bag of cash on the floor and took out the bottle of cheap liquor from a bag filled with snacks and bottles of water I picked up from the gas station earlier. I wasted no time in twisting the cap off, the aroma of spices and warm bourbon instantly filling my nostrils as I chugged the bottle in strides. I closed my eyes and fell back onto the surprisingly comfortable bed. 200 miles to go. I could travel further, but 1,000 miles seems far enough from the horrors I faced.
I need another 50 cc. Tighten the restraints in case he wakes up. Brain scan shows diminished hippocampus activity and normal frontal lobe activity. Patient is still experiencing a flood of negative neurotransmitters. How shall we proceed, sir?
I want him to be happy. Make him love life. Make him smile. Make him dance.
Understood. 100 cc now. Inserting syringe in the hippocampus. We have contact. Injecting now. Negative neurotransmitters subdued. Scan reveals positive neurotransmitter activity. Frontal lobe activity is still normal. We have success. Wait. Adrenal gland activity is excessive. Frontal lobe activity has doubled. Monitoring. Sir, patient's fear response to increased frontal lobe activity will create uneven emotion patterns and mild to severe hallucinations, possibly negating our end goal. How would you like to proceed?
Release him. He still may be able to show us what happy looks like.
I woke up in a cold sweat to the buzzing of the neon sign amidst the dead silence. The skull-splitting headache returned. My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. I stared into the darkness for a moment and tried to relax before heading to the bathroom. Turning the faucet on, the pipes made a loud banging and creaking sound before spouting out orange-brown water, a sign of its abandonment. I waited until the water ran clear and the pipe settled before rinsing my face and staring into the mirror, revealing tired eyes. Drying my face as I stepped out of the bathroom, I dropped the towel and noticed two white shapes in the distance across the street, just out of view of the neon sign's glow. It didn't strike me as alarming, just out of place. I reached for a bottle of water from my bag of snacks and struggled to find it due to the darkness in that corner of the room. Opening the bottle, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. The two white shapes were moving closer at a steady but quick pace, bobbing up and down as they did so. Panic grew in me. I dropped the bottle and felt water splash over my legs, but I was frozen solid by fear, unfazed by the liquid. The shapes suddenly came into view under the light from the neon sign as they progressed towards my window. The shapes turned to faces that stared directly into my room as they pressed forward. Arms flexed in a running posture with fingers pointing straight ahead in an almost robotic motion. The white shapes they once were now formed the figures of two men. I had noticed that before because they wore all black suits which blended in with the night completely. Why can't I move? Why can't I react? I stood there and watched them now close the gap between us. It wasn't until they were 20 feet from my window that I realized, like a moment of sudden clarity, they were the men trailing behind me on the highway. The ones with the yellow orbs in the rear window of their car. The ones with the pale faces, out-of-era fedora and thick mustache. They were the patrons. I hadn't noticed the fedora before because he didn't wear it inside the bar. He instead rested it on the counter. The mustache patron was vaguely recognizable because I barely exchanged words with him. The fedora-wearing patron who had my attention all night did most of the talking, while the other just nodded and repeated, "Amen, brother," to his expounding. 10 feet from the window now. They looked right into my room with wide eyes. They shouldn't be able to see me. I'm sure I was camouflaged by the dark. I stepped back slowly until my back pressed against the wall behind me. My eyes remained fixated on them, mouth wide open and unable to make a sound. 2 feet from the window now. I could finally see their pale faces as they now were in full view of the light. They stopped right before colliding with the window. I gripped the corner of the wall with my left hand and covered my mouth with my right, hoping I was out of sight. I noticed their eyes staring straight ahead into the vaguely lit room, glazed over from not blinking. They both wore a wide smile revealing gritted teeth that blended with the color of their skin. A scream formed in my chest, but I quickly stifled it. Then, just as quickly as they came, they were gone, walking back into the darkness casually like nothing happened. My air-deprived lungs frantically tried to breathe in oxygen as I released my hand from my mouth, gasping and coughing to bring themselves back to life. I sat in the darkness for the next few hours, staring at the window, my brain feeling overworked, overtired, and totally disconnected from me. My thoughts, reactions, and emotions seemed foreign to me, as if I'd lost control of my existence. These weird visions, memories, dreams, whatever you like to call them, all blended into one distorted reality. This haunting seems to follow me wherever I go, and I'm just so tired. I can't trust my eyes or my mind anymore, and frankly, I don't know if starting a new life would make it all go away. But I wouldn't know until I try. The early morning sun shined dimly in the distance as it remained partially hidden by gray clouds. Through the dark veil, the sun was hopeful, still performing its duties despite the obstacles it faced. So that's what I shall do. After a hot shower and feeling mentally and physically refreshed, I packed my snacks and stared at the half-empty bottle of alcohol for a moment, deciding to leave it behind. I need to be unobstructed by my vices. I don't know if drinking affects these visions or whatever they were, but I'm not willing to test that theory anymore. I grabbed my bag of cash and headed out the door, the cool, crisp morning air reinforcing my determination. Dropping a $50 bill off at the front desk, I thanked the clerk and filled out the optional customer satisfaction survey. I threw the bag into the trunk, started up the motor of my car and flicked radio on. Old classic songs from the era of Frank Sinatra played with clarity, no distortion or static. I forced the shifter into drive as a flood of confidence and joy filled me, pulling out of the parking lot of the last place that I will ever allow to haunt me. I saw a weathered green sign on the right, Town of Roland, 100 miles. This story is an original creation by me. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and share, as new content will be uploaded weekly. To submit a story request or stay up to date on my uploads, follow my subreddit and Twitter. All links in the description below. Thank you, and stay creepy.